Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Wanted to start out with a couple of thank yous. First to Dave DeRocher and the Other Side Academy for hosting this in this gorgeous space. Let's give a hand to Dave. Next, wanted to thank Clean Slate Utah and invite Destiny Garcia, the Executive Director of Clean Slate Utah, to join me up here. Thank you for partnering with us for this event, and Destiny's going to introduce her staff and tell you a little bit about Clean Slate Utah.
I'm Destiny Garcia. I'm the Executive Director of Clean Slate Utah. First, I want to introduce Charlotte Waterbury. Will you stand up? And Chad Chrisman. And then Chad Chrisman. So we are a really small nonprofit. We have a team of 4, and we help people clear their criminal records and access opportunities. So there's half my staff right there. We're really busy all day long. And when I took over from Noella, I knew I had big shoes to fill. She's an amazing woman. And what I learned really quickly was that I was turning more people away who needed pardon support than I was helping people who needed an expungement. So we have started to bring on pardon support, helping people through the pardon process, helping them get their paperwork, and getting in front of the Board of Pardons. So we're starting that this year. 1 in 4 people have a criminal record in Utah. How many people in this room have a criminal record? There you go. There you go.
I don't anymore.
It is more common than people think. People just don't talk about it. They don't talk about having a criminal record. We also know that half of kids in Utah, half of the children in Utah have at least one parent that has a criminal record. So let that sink in. And oftentimes those parents can't go to their kids' field trips. They can't go to activities that their children are at because of their old mistakes that they've made, And that's a huge barrier to become the better person that you are, especially for your families. We also know that having a criminal record is a huge barrier. It's a barrier on housing, safe, affordable housing. It's a barrier on getting employment. It's a barrier on getting anything, really. You can't get your licensures. You can't go to school and get a master's degree with a criminal record without going through a rigorous application and explanation process. So we know it's a huge problem, and we're trying to fix it. So we have an intake form on our website. It's cleanslateutah.org. You can fill out the intake form, and whether you need a pardon or an expungement, we can help you figure out the process, what that looks like, and move forward.
So Destiny said she had big shoes to fill. She has filled them. I feel like she's a much better executive director than I ever was, and just so proud of her and her growth and all she has done for people with records. So thank you for all you do, continue to do, and we're really excited for this conversation tonight. So I guess I should have started by introducing myself. Some of you know me, but probably not all of you. My name is Noella Sudbury. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Rasa. Our mission at Rasa is to make the process of clearing a criminal record simple and affordable for everyone. So we're a team of lawyers, software engineers, and advocates, including formerly incarcerated people, just trying to help people every day move forward with their lives. Super excited for tonight's conversation. Before we jump into the panelist intros, wanted to throw out a little bit of data about work and what we're talking about tonight. So tonight we're talking about second chance hiring, or I think a better term for it is fair chance hiring, because some people have never had a fair chance in the beginning. Why is this important? How does this problem relate to workforce? Well, the first thing is it costs us all money. Every year, the United States loses $87 billion in GDP by shutting people with records out of the workforce. The national unemployment rate right now is 3.5%. For people who are formerly incarcerated, it is 27%. This is a devastating statistic, but also a huge opportunity. As you will hear from the panelists tonight, things are starting to change. And there's also some research now that's starting to move the needle that I'm really excited about. Employers are finding that hiring people with records is a great way to find talent and fill roles that they really need to fill. And the evidence shows that it is working. Some survey data that just came out a couple of years ago shows that 85% of HR professionals who hire people all the time say that people with records perform as well or better than people without records. And they're more loyal, they stay longer, their retention rates are higher because people with records understand what it means to have a chance. So with that, I will introduce our panelists tonight, starting with Dr. Sydney Shorter.
Good evening.
I love the enthusiasm in this room, by the way. Dr. Shorter is president and CEO of the Utah Black Chamber of Commerce. She was recently named the director of the Utah Minority Business Development Agency for the state of Utah. She's the CEO of Execute Now, a client-focused finance and accounting firm with a mission to ensure nonprofits and small to mid-sized organizations have affordable access to capital, prudent financial management, and forward-linking leadership. She holds many degrees, including a doctorate degree in biblical psychology, a master's in theology, 2 bachelor's degrees, and is a licensed therapist. In addition to being very educated, she's won about every award that you can imagine, including being recognized as the winner of the 2022 Utah 40 Women Over 40, and being a mentor for women who succeed. Sydney believes that great leaders are serial learners and exceptional listeners. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sydney Shorter.
Thank you.
To Sydney, right next to Sydney, is someone familiar to many people in this room, Dave DeRocher, who's the executive director of the Other Side Academy. Dave DeRocher was arrested for the first time at the age of 13. By the time he was 38, he had been to prison 4 times. Facing a 22-year prison sentence, he was given an opportunity, and he's going to be talking more about this tonight, to attend a 2-year vocational training program in California called Delancey Street. He went on to not only complete that program, but be a leader and an executive director of Delancey's Los Angeles Center. Dave is tenacious, interpersonally skilled, a good manager, inspiring, and a very powerful public speaker, as you will see tonight. In 2015, he helped launch the Other Side Academy here in Salt Lake City, and under his management and leadership has brought in over $11 million and has provided a home to more than 90 students. So join me in welcoming Dave DeRocher. I think the cheers should get louder for each person. Let's up the ante.
It's yours now. Right.
In the center with the chair without a back, thank you for being a good sport. We have Brian Tees from the Cirque Lodge. Brian prides himself on bringing a straightforward and passionate approach to his work in the field of substance use. He's been a member of the clinical team at the Cirque Lodge since August 2016. In addition to being a licensed therapist, Brian has a strong foundation in advocacy, especially on behalf of the homeless, incarcerated individuals, and those struggling with co-occurring substance use and psychiatric issues. His efforts have drawn local and national attention, and he was a finalist for the Jasper G. Chen C. National Volunteer of the Year Award. Brian earned his Master's of of Social Work and his substance use disorder counselor degrees from the University of Utah. He has also served as faculty at the University of Utah College of Social Work. Brian was named the 2017 Cirque Lodge Angel of the Year for his care and dedication to his team. He's married and loves to spend time with his wife, Sherlyn, and their golden doodle. He also loves to ride motorcycles. Join me in welcoming Brian. Next to Brian is Heather Chase, who some of you in this room might also know. She's the executive director of The Haven. Heather has over 14 years of experience working in the field of substance use. She began her employment in 2007 with The Haven and currently holds the title of executive director. Heather has a master's degree from the University of Utah in social work with a specialty in forensics, as well as an SUD certificate. Trained and certified in a variety of therapeutic modalities, she's also taken part in the executive leadership training program through the business school at the University of Utah. Heather has been honored with multiple awards for her leadership, including the Outstanding Nonprofit Leader Award from the Utah Nonprofits Association and Distinguished Practicum Service Award from the University of Utah College of Social Work. Please join me in welcoming Heather. And now, Mr. John Hale. Some of you are probably very familiar with John's businesses. Hires Big H, Lisa's Pizzas. He is a big employer in our community. Since his father started Hires in 1959, John Hale had plenty of opportunities to work in the family business, from tasting trips throughout the West, working at Hale's Market, making produce runs, cooking at the grill, developing recipes, and interacting with customers. John had years of restaurant experience before he went back to school and graduated in business finance from the University of Utah. After working with franchise startups in Southern California, John decided to come back to Utah and to Hires, where he and his brother eventually took over the business that now includes 4 restaurants, including Lisa's Pizza. John has taken pride not only in the high-quality products served at his restaurants, but also the opportunity he and his family have had to provide employment to thousands of people, from students working their way through school to individuals who have been steadily employed at Hires for 50 years. Hires is proud to be a second chance employer to those who are working to rebuild their lives and shape their future. Please join me in welcoming John. You can pass it back. And thankfully, we don't have to read my bio because I'm not sure how it would compare to these panelists. So I just get to be the person asking the questions. And we are going to start with Dr. Shorter.
Passing it back down.
So the microphone's got to make its way.
Isn't there a show called Pass the Mic?
If there's not, there should be. Why should people hire people with criminal records? Tell us about that as a leader of the chamber. Why should people do this?
So you said the key word 3 times. People. Why should people hire people? Because we're people. And my son has coined this phrase that we would all be much better off if we would just stick to peopling. And it's ingenious when you think about that. But I think I'm going to do something here and make sure that everyone in the room raises their hand. You ask, how many in here had an arrest record? Is that how you ask it? So raise your hand. Keep your hand up. How many in here should have been arrested? How many in here just didn't get caught? How many in here would never admit it? Every hand in the room should be up. And so I say that, but I say that because we all have, at some point in time, not been at our best. And that's really simply what it is. And so we should not be penalized because at some point in time, we were not absolutely at our best. And we are all, we want to say, we're all guilty of that. But one of the things when we talk about the workforce, and I didn't know you would be sitting next to me, but from a chamber perspective, one of the things that we truly advocate for is entrepreneurship. Holding your own, building your own. And I am sure if you can manage having a second chance, you can manage having a business or building an idea or thought of your own. I come from a community, you know, we kind of toss the saying around, man, that guy on that corner, he used to be so smart. Not used to be. He still is. Made some bad decisions. Maybe not. I mean, I know of some cases where it wasn't a bad decision. It was a bad decision on the criminal justice system. It really was their bad decision. And so I'll go back to people. And from a chamber standpoint, it is really about having a vital economic ecosystem. And everyone can be a part of that. If we invested in ensuring that everyone was vital to the economic ecosystem, it wouldn't cost the system so much. So I'll stop there.
I love that. I'm going to move the microphone all the way back to John. Just want to keep you guys awake up here. So John, Hires has hired many justice-involved people through the years. I'm curious when you started doing that and why you started doing that.
Well, I've always felt that people are the key. And it doesn't matter to me what really people's past are. I feel like I have something to give when we hire people. I want them to become a part of us. I want to know their history. Out of our West Valley store, which is a commissary for our restaurants, we hire individuals that have disabilities. And to me, I mean, there's nothing more to brighten up my day than to go into the store and see people, these individuals working hard, and how can I make their lives better? And so, you know, it's just, we just got to all consider that we're all people, and we just can't look at what people's pasts are, or we can only look at to see what their futures may be and how they can become a better person. Well, I'm not sure I got the question answered.
I mean, most of it.
Okay.
I think you answered the why and when.
Well, we started, was probably about, 10 years ago when it was hard to find labor. And I talked to a friend of mine from high school, and he told me about Odyssey and that they allowed people to come and work for the day and then go back to Odyssey and then come back the next day. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. I don't have anything against these people. I want to meet these people. I want to see if I can make a difference in their life. So it was about 10 years ago that we started hiring a lot of people, and I've made friends, and I've had to let some friends go at times because they weren't being nice. But yeah, probably about 10 years ago we started this program.
Excellent. All right. Let's go to Brian. We're going to the center. We're going to Brian now. Brian, you raised your hand as someone who has a record, has been involved in the justice system. I'm hoping that you can briefly share your journey to the criminal justice system and how you got there.
Okay, please bear with me. I lost my voice this morning. I got allergies. So at the age of 23, I'm an identical twin. And at the age of 23, my identical twin fell in a mine shaft while out hiking in Cripple Creek, Colorado. And he fell about as high as the Empire State Building to his death. And where he fell is where he's at today. There was no tools in my toolbox to deal with the loss of my identical twin brother. I would lean more and more on alcohol, which would go into drug use, which would go into full-blown addiction. I would find myself in and out of incarceration throughout most of my adult life at the Utah State Penitentiary and other lockdown facilities in the state of Utah. Due to that trauma, which was very traumatic, I would come to find out that it's very common for people with trauma to end up in the system. And the system in and of itself is traumatizing. And for those of you that have been in that system, you know, and it just adds more trauma on top of trauma. I was angry, I was hurt, and I wasn't going to tell anybody. And I would stay stuck like that for a long time.
And now we can't leave everyone hanging. You have to tell us then what happened.
So, what happened was I finally decided, after multiple attempts, to seek out recovery. And I had no idea what that was going to look like. None. I mean, I spent a lot of years in and out of prison, gang affiliated, club affiliated, and it was not so much as the system in and of itself to get away from, it was the environment and the people, right? It's one thing to lay the drugs down and the alcohol. It's another thing to try to disengage from the culture that I was in. And it was very hard for me to learn to do that. So I ended up in the Salt Lake County Jail for the last time. And I went to see a judge, Judge Dino Jimenez. And it was before he became the drug court justice or drug court judge. And he gave me a second chance opportunity to get my life together. I stood before him and I said, listen, my brother came to visit me in jail. I hadn't seen my brother in 8 years. When I'm living the life I'm living, the last thing I am is around anybody that is decent or good or anybody in my family. And my brother came and told me my father had cancer and he was dying. My mother cried a lot. They had no idea where I was. I was off in the streets. And my brother said I was still loved and needed, and I was needed by them. And he asked if I was done. I told Judge Jimenez that story, and he gave me another chance to succeed.
More questions for you later, but we're going to give your voice a break and go to Heather. Heather, you are also someone who's been impacted by the justice system, and I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about your journey and then how you ended up at the Haven.
Well, yes, that's a different question. I don't always disclose to everybody that I'm in long-term recovery just because oftentimes there's so much stigma associated with addiction, and I've always wanted people to kind of to know me first and then find out, here you are, this, and this. But since we're in a safe space here, I am somebody with lived experience, long-term recovery, 19 years as of March 30th. And I, like so many others, I think a lot of us, even sitting in this room, I grew up in an environment with 2 addicted parents, in and out of different relationships, the parents, moving state to state, place to place, going to different schools. I think I went to 9 different elementary schools, and a little history there because there was no stability in my life, very typical of addicted families. And from a young age, it's just where it began. I started using really young. I moved out of my home very young. By the time I was 16, I was out on the streets alone, doing my thing, in and out of incarceration till my early 20s. And before that, things were really ugly. It was dark. I was living on the streets at some point. I was homeless. Some of you in this room know me well, and not getting too much into the dark stuff, but it was ugly. I never wanted to get sober because I didn't think it really existed. And I was very fortunate that the divine intervention of the legal system finally said, hey, girl, you need rehab. Because all that time before, I would go back in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Get out, go on the run, do my thing, and there was no opportunity or any accountability in somebody saying, hey, you need treatment. So I was very blessed that I was presented with this opportunity, and I don't want to sound all cheesy, but like I went through the Haven and now I work there, but that's the truth. It gave me a space and an opportunity and a home, and it guided me because I had no parental guidance. I had no love in my life, and these people came and were like, here, let's bring you into the fold, and I'm very fortunate. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the Haven and a community, right? It's bigger than just the Haven, it's the recovery community. And like I said, I didn't go there for the right intentions, but I left with the best intentions. And I think getting to see, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, people modeling it for me, and it was like, wow, these people are so amazing. I can't believe I can actually do this in my life. I never held down a job. I don't know how to use a computer. I don't know what a resume means. And the hand-holding and the help going through that process is where I'm at today. And yeah, all the fancy stuff you were reading off that paper is really cool, but it was a lot of hard work and people guiding me through that. So I hope I answered that, whatever.
It was perfect. And I'm going to stay with you, Heather, for a minute,
Okay.
And ask you another question. So you're now the executive director at the Haven, and you work with a lot of people who are fresh out of the justice system. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us, since this is about employment, how fair chance hiring or second chances in employment impacts the success of the people in your program.
Yeah, so as I was just mentioning, modeling is so important because people modeled that for me, and I feel like all of us that work at the agency, we're modeling for the next people that are coming through the program. It's not us just saying, you get a second, third, fourth chance. It's actually showing this is what multiple chances have done for all of us. This is what it looks like to have gainful employment. This is what the process looks like. So for me, all of us that work in our center that have been through this experience, and our clients getting to go through that and watching us progress, and many of us, I mean, I look at Amy, right, and it's like starting from the bottom and now you're here, and our clients getting to see that, and a lot of times they know us from our history. Sometimes people come in, they're like, hey, I know you from prison, jail, institutions, from using. I can't believe this is you. Oh my gosh, you don't even look the same. I hear that a lot from people. Are you the same one from Ogden? I'm like, yeah, that's me. But it's the truth. So I think modeling is so important, and knowing that this is real. You can have this too. This isn't something magic. It's like, no, this is real. You can do this just like everybody else. So hopefully that answered that.
It does. Let's go back to Dave. Dave, I'm wondering if you can briefly tell us about your path to the justice system and what helped turn your life around, and how specifically work was a part of that.
Yeah. So I was a drug addict for well over 27 years, starting at a very young age. I was 11 years old when I took my first drink. And of course, I went from drinking to pot, and then at age 13, I did my first line of cocaine. And I tried to navigate my teenage years going through high school with a vial of cocaine in my pocket, doing it in class, pulling the big pen apart when the teacher wasn't looking. That's how bad things got for me. Somehow I managed to graduate high school, and when I graduated from high school, I went from coke to meth, and that's really when the wheels fell off. And I never set out to be a drug dealer. That wasn't the intention. I didn't like shake hands with Brian when he was going off to college and say, I'm going to go deal drugs. It just happened that way. And one thing led to another, and I started getting arrested. I went to prison for the first time, and my first term was 2 years. I got out for 59 days, went back to prison for a 5-year term, got out for 60 days, so at least I stayed out longer by a day. I don't know if I was getting better or worse. Went back to prison for a 6-year term, then went back to prison for a 10-year term. So it was 2, then 5, then 6, then 10, with very little time out in between those terms. And I was doing time in California, and I often refer to California as high school with knives, prison system there. It's different, and it's not nice, and it changed the way I viewed the world and the way I saw people, and it wasn't for the better. And after I got out, after that 10-year prison sentence, I got in trouble again. And this was a really, really ugly arrest that included a high-speed chase, a helicopter, wanton disregard for public safety. And when it was all said and done, I was looking at 22 years. And when we talk about second chances, this was the chance of a lifetime. So I'm looking at going back to prison for a 22-year prison sentence, and I wrote a program called Delancey Street, which was widely known for a long time as the gold standard in this country. It's the only place that the judges would send people like myself with that kind of time. They interviewed me, they accepted me, and the judge said no. And I fought my case for a very long time in the county jail, and finally I decided to write that judge a letter, and I did. And I wrote him 4 pages, and I pled guilty to all of my charges on paper. I said, Your Honor, you got me. I'm guilty of everything, and I'm letting you know now. Please give me a chance to go to Delancey Street. They think they can help me. I've been to prison 4 times already. It didn't work. Not that it's intended to, and hopefully the next time you see me, it's because I'm coming back to say thank you. And Judge Pacheco gave me the opportunity to go to Delancey Street when I went to court next. And he made me plead guilty in court to 22 years, and he sentenced me to 22 years, and he suspended that time over my head. And I went to a 2-year program, and I stayed 8.5 years. Let that sink in. I stayed 8.5 years in a program, right? Most programs today are much shorter. The shorter ones would not have worked for me. I needed something long, and I needed something that was going to hold me accountable. But the beautiful piece about Delancey Street, it was work-based. We had social enterprises like we do at the Other Side Academy that generate the revenue. And the minute I got there, I became part of the solution. Nobody was paying for my recovery. So many elements of that really helped me gain some self-esteem, some confidence, and learn to become the 2.0 version of myself. I needed that additional time. I needed that work piece. And that second chance was like winning the lottery, only I didn't win any money. I won my life back.
We're going to stay with you, Dave, for a moment. Unlike some of the other treatment programs in our community, the Other Side Academy, like Delancey Street, is very work-based. Since we have some people that might not be familiar with the Other Side Academy in the room, I'm wondering if you can talk about how that program works and how it's connected to work and all of the great work you do in our community.
Yeah. So, when I was going to jail, who was paying for me? The community. I was a burden. When I was going to prison, who was paying for me? The taxpayer. I was a burden. When I was going to a program that I could not fund myself, I was a burden to some degree. I'm an adult. I shouldn't be a burden on anybody anymore. I was making adult decisions that came with adult consequences. At the Other Side Academy, we're 2.5 years long. We are residential, and we take no money from outside sources at all. City, county, state, federal government, rich mommy and daddy, Medicaid, nothing. We are work-based. We have our own social enterprises, our moving company, our thrift stores, our construction company, our storage company. Those social enterprises generate the revenue. The reason why that's important is the day you get here, you become part of the solution. You're no longer part of the problem. One other thing that I learned, I always thought that I knew how to work. Even when I was going in and out of prison, I thought I knew how to work. But what I've learned over the years is drug addicts, when you're in the lifestyle, we don't know how to work. If we did, that's where we'd be. When I was in prison, that's what I knew how to do. When I was in jail, that's what I knew how to do. It's important that that work be part of it, right? And now I've got scores and scores of organizations, countless companies that want to hire our graduates. The day they graduate from the Other Side Academy, on that day, we've got full-time employment for them, living wages all across the valley. More organizations are looking for our graduates than I have graduates to fill the spots, because they've learned how to work and become a productive member in a community, be on time, have a good attitude, follow simple instructions, go to bed, rinse and repeat. That piece is so critical. Many times people go to a treatment facility, have the therapy for a while, and then leave, and we expect them to go out and get a job and be successful, and that's the missing piece. So when you can combine the two, the treatment with the work, it's a win-win.
So I'd like to go back to John for a second. So we've heard about how important work is. I thought it'd be helpful to hear from an employer who hires people coming out of the justice system. Can you talk to us about what that experience has been like, and provide a couple of examples of what it looks like at hires?
The experience that I've had with the people that we've hired from Odyssey House, yeah, I just think it was a great experience to learn. I mean, this is amazing to hear these individuals pass and what they went through. And this was what people that were in Odyssey were going through. And I felt it a privilege to try to be a part of their life, to be a good example for them, to talk to them, to share my experiences with them, to see if I couldn't help improve. I mean, there are some things that I would have changed if I had known When they would get a break, they would get lunch and stuff like that. But these kids from Odyssey House would go out in the parking lot and smoke, and I would think, is that really legal? And I thought, well, yeah, it's not illegal to smoke. But later on, I learned that you weren't supposed to be smoking at Odyssey House. You were supposed to be following all the rules, and you weren't supposed to be taking this privilege. So it was kind of a steep road for me, and I wish I would have had someone from Odyssey House come and say, here's our rules. Here's what we want you to do. Here's what we don't want you to do. And it was just kind of by happenstance that we learned the rules along the way. And that was hard for me. But treating everybody as an individual was the most critical thing to me. And I realized that people, even more so today, that people can get back on the path if you have someone that believes in you. It only takes one person to believe in you. And when you can find that person, things will change. So.
Let's go back to Sydney. So we've just heard from a business, and now we're going back to one of the state's business chambers. If a business is thinking about hiring people with records, does the chamber have any programs, initiatives, guidance for maybe employers who are new in this space and not sure how to get started?
Well, I'll start with this. I don't think it's something that needs an excuse or an explanation. I have actually begun to ask employers to accept blind resumes. Blind resumes don't have your name, it just has your experience and your education. And we've been testing that, and it's very interesting because we all have biases, and we really, in some areas, we double down on them. And it's not only to the detriment of the person, but it's also to the detriment of the business. Because we may select something or someone that we're more comfortable with, but that doesn't mean that they're the best candidate. That is not what that means. And so I just believe in, and I don't even call it fair. It's not about fair because that's kind of judgmental. Who qualifies? Who qualifies to do this work? The other thing that we're challenging is just the job description. Most job descriptions don't describe the job. It tells you how they want you to do it. But if you're hiring a professional, I believe just tell me what the deliverables are. Tell me what is the intended outcome. And if I'm the professional, then I'm going to deliver that. And what happens is that when you tell an employee how to do it, and they do it the way you told them to do it, and you're not pleased with the outcome, well, whose fault is that? You didn't give them space or place to be a professional to actually do the work. Now, is training something, education something that needs to happen? Yes. But why would I tell the carpenter how to cut that door? Does that really need to be in the, I don't know. I don't know that, but I know I want a house with a door. And so it sounds simplistic, but it's very realistic. And so when having those conversations with employers, it's really being focused on what is the outcome? What is it you are trying to achieve? Well, just make sure that you're hiring the best candidate, period.
Let's go back to Heather. So it's one thing to hire someone with a record, but that's just one thing. I think it depends on what happens next. It means bringing them into a culture and environment where you support them and their growth. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you do this at the Haven. What does it mean to be a second chance, fair chance employer to you?
So giving a little history, the Haven has been around since 1969, and we've always hired people with lived experience. Now there's a healthy blend. I'm not saying everybody that works there is lived experience, but something cool that I kind of love is right now our entire leadership team, every single one of us went through the Haven. Every single one of us struggled with addiction for years, and every single one of us were involved with the justice system. So the reason I'm giving that as some context is it shows we really invest in our people and we invest long term. One of the cool things, I think that's part of it, working with Rasa, part of this investment, I think it's important to highlight this. We're starting to shift things a little bit. We are pushing big time and getting as many people expungements as possible, working with clean slate, seeing how many people can get pardons, and we're pushing for that because we want to invest in our people. We know maybe everybody's not going to be with us forever. They might go on to open their own center or want to go work for Other Side Academy, I don't know. But we're investing and we want to see people better their futures, and by showing up for them differently and helping them expunge their records and do all this, I think that's really helping the overall hiring needs in our community.
And we have loved partnering with you at Rasa, and I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit more as you've been kind of rolling out this benefit of expungement to your staff, just what the reaction has been from your employees.
I want to share a little highlight, and yes, I got permission to share this, just like from all of my team. I see somebody back there. We have somebody who's been with us now for 3 years. She actually went through our program. Such an amazing human. I just love her so much. Been in and out of prison most of her life, and something changed. She finally got it. She went through our program. Unfortunately, with her criminal history, the location she was at in one county, it was an enhanced charge and it went federal based upon location. She's been fighting this the entire time she's been with us. Over 3 years sober now. Been fighting this, waiting for sentencing, and it's likely going to happen next month. The amazing thing working with Rasa, one of her convictions were actually dropped down. Now it changed her entire matrix for her sentencing guidelines. She was looking at up to 10 years in federal prison, and now they're thinking she's going to go on federal probation. So it's a huge deal. This partnership means so much to us. I can be really tearful over this kind of stuff because this person is incredible, and it really does work. And a lot of us just don't know this. Even my own record working with Rasa, it's like I'm an executive director and I'm still going through legal issues and fighting this stuff. And a lot of it came down to I just didn't know. I wasn't educated around this. So I greatly appreciate it. And I think it's awesome to be able to share a highlight like that. I have somebody in this room that told me 2 days ago, oh my goodness, you'll never believe it. I just got out of felony status for the first time in my adult life. And I'm like, oh, this is why we're doing this. It's incredible. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go back to Brian. Hopefully we've given your voice enough of a break. So unfortunately, we don't make the laws, and some people are not eligible for expungement. But in addition to expungement, Utah has a pardon process. And Brian, I know that you are a person who has been through that process and successfully obtained a pardon. And I'm guessing there's some people in this room who might want to pursue that path in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and whether you found that process to be meaningful?
Well, that's a lot. I did get a full pardon and a full expungement for my record. I was one of the first people in the state to have that done. My record was extensive. As I said earlier, I had multiple years in and out of incarceration. I thought there'd never be a pathway for someone like myself with my history to have that opportunity. And I went to BCI and I got my record, and it was a lot. And they denied me. So I went to the Board of Pardons because the recovery community and some legislators had the foresight to enact an expungement process to do a BCI override. This is before we had clean slate law. This is before we had Rasa. And I said, I want to kick the door open. It's not about me. It's about all the people that are going to come after me. That's what this is about. And I do a lot with corrections. I still do. And I have not gone to any jail or any prison and asked anyone if all of you had an opportunity to have your records pardoned or expunged and get gainful employment and have the ability to support you and your families and your children, to have real jobs with real benefits, how many of you would do it? Stunned to see the entire population raise their hand. And I thought, this is my mission. So I started that process on my own. It was very complicated. It was very drawn out. I was in college at the time. And I might add, I'm dyslexic with cognitive learning disabilities. Guys like me don't go to college. So for me to be in college and graduate with a 4.0 through the support of our local recovery community and the support of an attorney that heard my story, she came alongside of me and said that she would help me. And she helped me through that process. And I went before the Board of Pardons, and I was one of the first cases to go through that Board of Pardons after that law was enacted. And I disclosed my entire record. I was very candid, I was very open, and I was very honest about everything they asked. We took a couple-minute break, and then they asked me, what have you done in your recovery? What have you done to support our community? And then I started talking about the things I've done and I continue to do in our community. I very rarely talk about the things that I do in the community. The people that I serve, they know who they are, and they know that I've come up and helped them. But I'm not like trying to, become a poster child for that. I just look for a need, and I help underserved populations, the homeless, the veterans, LGBTQ community, you name it. I've got my hands in it in some shape, fashion, or form. And this attorney worked with me until I was able to get my expungement. And I'll tell you something, and a pardon. And I'll tell you something, I was at work and I got a phone call, and it was from the Board of Pardons. I excused myself from our staff meeting. I went out to the parking lot, and I called them back. And they said, Mr. Tees, the board has made a decision. I get choked up. They said that your record has been expunged and fully pardoned. And I said, what does that mean for me? And they said, that means you'll never have to check the box ever again. And I started to cry right there. I went back to my staff meeting and I told everyone in the staff meeting, I just received a complete pardon. I never have to check the box. But then that put me on a crusade. If I don't have to check the box, neither should any of you. I believe that with my entire heart, but it took work, and I had to be honest with myself, and I had to be honest with what I've done, and I had to take a complete accountability for where I was in my life and in my recovery by helping the next person out. Did I answer that adequately?
It's amazing.
I wanted to add one other thing. My family, the people that know me, it's life-changing. It's absolutely life-changing to be able to have that. And the College of Social Work called me and asked me if I would come teach for them. And I said I would. And when I put the application in, they said, do you have a criminal history? And I sat there for 25 minutes because my habit was to check the box. And I realized I didn't have to. And it was my first big test because they're going to run my record. And I'm like, should I lie? They said I didn't have to check the box, and I didn't check the box. They ran my record and it came back with nothing, and I was hired.
Let's go back to Dave. So some people are not going to be eligible for a pardon just yet. In the meantime, what advice would you give justice-involved people who are seeking maybe an employment opportunity, or maybe in this period of time where they just need to prove themselves before they can take that next step?
You know, I was in Delancey Street for 8.5 years, and I've got 31 felonies, and I already explained many years of incarceration. And what I've learned, and I don't have a pardon or an expungement, what I've learned is to overcome my past, to start to build a pathway, right? Get some jobs, hold those jobs, stay clean, start building my own personal expungement, right? Now I actually use my record as something positive. I almost always lead with my story, because even though, you know, many times when I got out of prison, I wouldn't go look for a job because I knew the stigma, no one's going to hire me. That was the story that I told myself. But today, even with my record, if I wasn't here, I'd have a job tonight. I know how to go get one, and I know how to fight just as hard to build a life for myself as I fought to destroy my life. I will not allow my record or my past to dictate my present or my future. That's the best advice I can give. Stop allowing your past to dictate your future, and get yourself to a point where you can get the expungement or the pardon. It takes work. It's not going to come naturally. You have to put the work in, and sometimes that takes time. Put the work in. There's living proof that it can happen.
Let's go back to Heather. And this will be our last question. I could ask you guys questions all night long. This hour has flown by. But I wanted to end with this. Heather, you once said that the Haven has a goal of restoring independence. And I'm wondering if you can talk more about what that means to you.
Well, I think this is kind of layered. When I think of restoring independence, I think about being able to actually find gainful employment, equal opportunity employment, fair compensation and wages. That to me is independence. Being able to go in a community and actually live in the neighborhood you want to live in, not being forced to live somewhere else because you have this crazy record and X, Y, and Z. Being able to have those fair opportunities, being able to apply to one of the colleges, because that is one of the things we've talked about. That is a struggle. You have to have, X, Y, and Z in place, or how can you justify your record? Licensing, DHHS, Office of Licensing, same thing. There's a lot of layers there. So to restore independence is really layered, and I think it's important when I go back to what we're doing here and what this panel is about. Part of this is being able to restore independence in our life, because being able to reduce some of that and being able to have that independence and go into the community, it's amazing. Yeah.
So we probably have time for 1 to 2 questions from the audience. So we're going to kick this back to you. Does someone have a question?
I do, and I'm a single couple, so I'm going to try to all these positions. So, background checks, do they always go to a BCI, or do they go to this online gut by the shorts when the employer's running the background check?
That would depend on the employer, but most times they're going to go to the local courts, or because it's a public record, or they're going to go through BCI. As far as I'm aware.
And employers do not have to hire Don, I guess. This is just something you do out of the goodness of your heart, that you're hoping you don't get Charlie Manson working into your hamburger place, am I right? Because not everybody does that.
Yeah, that's totally true.
There's no law that says employment opportunity casino, that's not true.
Right. So it's just my belief that people deserve a chance. And obviously we have to look at what kind of past they have. I mean, I've had a great staff and they all got involved, but there are people that I think, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this, but we just have to make the decision. And for the most part, 95%, 99% of the time, we felt good about taking people on. So you just still have to be conscious of what's going on. But everybody has a dream. And everybody wants to fulfill that dream, but we just don't always know how to get there. And helping people is what's important.
Thank you. And I just have one more. So we know that the justice system always not cracked up to be. And sometimes those judges, I mean, I would hate to have a hard job, so I probably shouldn't criticize. But like I have a nephew, well, it's actually my second cousin, who has gotten DUI. He ended up a felon. He goes to get a job. He's not going to be driving your trucks. He's not going to be taking your daughter to whatever. He's just loading fruit onto a shelf, but we're not going to hire you because that's a felony. And no, the DUI was just how it come home from the bar wrong. Didn't kill anybody that got it or anything like that. So it's discouraging, you know, that, I mean, that you have these felonies, or like Heather at New Haven, I've got a grandson that's in recovery for the first time in 10 years. You know, I don't want to throw names around, but we were at first step, and a couple of things that happened there, which, Jesus, that was me. And when you're an addict, I understand, or whatever, and I'm not judging, because it must be horrible to go, no, it's messed up, so you're going to get kicked out. Well, now you're hurt, now you're angry, what will use? I mean, you know, it's just a struggle, especially with substance abuse. It's tore my heart out for 10 years, and now this judge is sent to another facility, and I'm just a whole being. And this one is the one that I'm going to, and have a smoke, and have a phone, and you know, hopefully your resources inside fill that time. You know, I mean, I know we're the parents, the grandparents, the moms, the dads, that our loved one is struggling with rehabilitation, the judges. I mean, sometimes that's very frustrating too. It's like,
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear what you're going through. One thing that I can offer is, you know, hope for the future. I know it's so hard right now, but I can tell you as I watch employers that people are starting to hire people with felony records, even felony DUI records. And there's this shift of, okay, is what we're asking this person to do related to their criminal record? Does the type of criminal record have any relationship to this person's job performance? And we're starting to see that because we have no other choice. We can't continue to shut these people out of the workforce. I can also tell you that we've helped many people with felony and misdemeanor DUIs later get their records expunged. And it's a long time to wait, but it is possible. I'm so sorry that it doesn't feel possible now, and I think many in this room probably have loved ones and can relate. So,
but thank you so much for coming and giving us a little bit of insight.
yeah, thank you, and thank you for being here and sharing your perspective. Let's do one more question from the audience, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay, Brian has selected one.
Thank you, outstanding. As a freshman coming through that door, Dave, thank you very much, Brian. My question is to you, and it's a two-part question. Time. I'm getting long in the tooth. What is the difference, Brian, brother, the difference between, I'm sorry about this, the difference between expunged and pardoned? And the other second part of that question is, what is worst case scenario time frame, please?
Okay, might be answers as best as I can. What I didn't know is every time you get charged with a crime, whether they file or they don't file, it's a fail to file, or it's been dismissed, it stays on your record. It's a permanent piece of your record. So I would go around thinking, well, I didn't get charged with that. They didn't, I was dismissed, but it's still a part of my record. So the expungement part is they come in and they expunge everything they can get rid of. And then what they can't get rid of, the hard cases that I actually did time for, the prison and all of that stuff, then they give me a pardon for all the rest of it. Did I get that right, Noella?
Yeah, let me add one more thing. So in general, what I like to tell people is expungement and pardon is kind of a pathway to the same thing, hopefully, which is a clear record. Whether you're eligible for expungement depends on three things generally: how many records you have, what those records are, and how long it has been. Under Utah law, in general, both misdemeanor and felony records of many types can be expunged. Some cannot. Some people have too many to be eligible for expungement. And so for individuals who are not eligible for expungement, Utah has created a different pathway for people to get to an expungement, and that's the pardons process. So under Utah law, the Board of Pardons is 5 individuals. They're appointed by the governor. There's an application process that will talk to you about what happened in those crimes. It'll ask you about work history, military service, treatment history, how you did when you were incarcerated, what you've done since you've been out. It's really an opportunity for you as an individual to make your case that you are a reformed individual and deserve a second chance. You will then have an opportunity after you file that application to appear before the Board of Pardons, which is what Brian was describing. You can also have members of the community write letters on your behalf, attesting to your changed character, being in a program like this, all the hard work that you've done. Typically, to apply for a pardon, you have to be out of the justice system for about 5 years. But if you're granted a pardon, you can then be eligible for expungement. So different pathways for different people. It just kind of depends on the makeup of your record. But both are meaningful opportunities to truly get a clean slate.
Yes, the reason I'm standing as a freshman today, please, if I may, again, respect, and I mean that sincerely. This is genuine, for real, the entire panel, please.
Noella, may I?
Yes, of course.
Particularly for my students, as we talk about expungement, we talk about pardons, the day you got here, you started that process. I can't emphasize that enough. The day you arrived at the Other Side Academy, you started the process towards that goal. You have to begin with the end in mind. We have to go through the change process first. So whether you come here, whether you go to another treatment facility, and then it's going to take time, but just know that people that you see with expungements and pardons had to start right where you're at right now. You've already started the process, so keep moving down this path. You will get there.
I'm in mama mode now, okay?
I love that.
So I often say this, and you said towards and have the end in mind. All of that is about looking forward. And so, but it's movement. You're in a vehicle. The engine is running and you're moving. And so in that, who said don't get stuck in the past? Yes, I'm in mama mode, I said that. Don't get stuck in the past. If you're moving forward, you have a rear view mirror and you have a windshield. The windshield is significantly larger than the rear view mirror. And what's in the rear view mirror is just a reflection. And the further you move forward, the reflection gets smaller. And what's ahead of you becomes your reality. So keep moving forward, keep the momentum, keep your eyes on the road ahead. Don't worry about the reflection.
And on that note, we're going to end. Join me once again in thanking the Other Side Academy and all of our terrific panelists.
Noella, thank you. Thank you for being a voice for all of us. Thank you and Destiny and your entire team for all the work you've been doing. You and I have known each other for 6 or 7 years. You were the reason why I was able to get into Salt Lake County Jail many years ago when you were working for the county. I love you. Thank you for all that you're doing. You are a hero in this community.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you. Let's go enjoy some donuts.
It's mandatory. You have to have one. We're going to give you a blood sugar test on your way out.